Okay, so let's get started now. So preferably just go hand in hand. Okay, so I go back to the first page, which is called as index.jsp. I would say it as a href. I call it as login page.html. I call it as login page. So what I want when I click on login page.html, I don't want HTML to be created. I want Spring to give me the HTML, or I would rather keep this way. This HTML page should not be given to the end user directly, and this page will be inside WebInner. Anything which is inside WebInner, only our application context can access it, who is our Spring. Okay, so once it is done, go back to the same package. You create a class here. You call it as login controller. We'll make this class as controller class by annotating it with controller. That's the first thing. I have to call this page, which is called as login page.html. For doing it, public model and view show login page. Okay, I would say return new model and view of the page, which is called as login page. You can keep it in uppercase or lowercase, anything of your choice. I just leave it as it is. Okay. No, it has an overloaded constructor. It may take. Is done with this? Perfect. Now, done with this? I'll create under JSP the file called as, the JSP called as login page. So the file will be like login page.jsp. Inside JSP, it will be login page.jsp. Okay. So here, not too complicated things. We'll just have a form. Quickly, we'll try filling out. Action, I'll say login.html. Enter name. Input type is equal to text. Name is equal to, let's call it as uname. I'll give a HR. Enter password. Input type is equal to password. Name is equal to pass. Now I'll give a HR. Let me close it. Input type is equal to submit. Perfect. So this is your normal HTML kind of form. That's in that model as of now. Is done with this. So first we'll have an index.html. When we click on login page.html, it goes to Spring. The Spring returns a model that comes here. Now I enter some data. It will go to login.html. The login.html is again a Spring controller forming with the request mapping as login or validate login, whatever you call it as. Maybe just to make that readable, I call that as validate login. Okay, done with this. Yeah, so now I'll have just one change here. I just got to make this as @request mapping. The mapping name is login page. That's what we have given. Okay, so we try giving login page.html, or maybe even this is okay, right? So now I'll say public void public model and view something called as validate login. I would take HTTP servlet request response. Okay, so these are two parameters which I try getting it. So again, this will be request mapping of what is that? Validate login, right? Just make sure that that has a forward slash. I'm sorry, do remember it has a forward slash. I just set check string uname is equal to request.get parameter of uname of password. So these are two values which I have passed it. I'll just put a dummy case here. If uname dot equals Lenovo and password dot equals Apple, I would say string return new model and view of uname. You can call it as like success login message, the model object. You logged in successfully with the name I give it as uname. So here I go. If not, anyways, it will be here. Return log. Perfect. Okay. This is failure. It's not required. Yeah. Three parameters. That's a value. The actual key is message. Huh. Yeah, here is it. We can do that one of the two ways. Either we can return it as a string and create a model. When the string is returned, even the model goes. Or we can do this. Yeah. Instead of storing it in a variable, just is done with this. Is survey done? Okay. Is survey done? Okay. So you just got to create two more files. Success login, failure login, insert JSP, and get your model object message. That's it. Okay. So let's go with that. I'll select this file, success login, under JSP, new, JSP, the file name, success login, finish, message. So just a little more pain. Page is EL ignored is false. Okay, done. It's only two lines. We'll make it very simple. Is done with that? Perfect. So yes, we'll add them. The next page is called failure login. New JSP. I think you should be able to do this. Failure page, dollar message, and page is you'll ignore is false. It is as simple as it. And your program is done. Why do we have to add that model? If not, it will treat this as a string. Or what we can do, whatever tags you want, you can put it in an external JSP file. Then, one second, include that file. You have a lot of conditions. You put it in an external JSP and include that. So that will all be included. Anyways, so that is something left to you. Perfect. Okay. Let me just check what we have done as of now. We started out with index.html. We have a page which is called as login page.html. When I click on login page.html, it goes to web.xml. The web.xml, it will check. Okay, in my case, I have given /. It means any request it will take. Okay, I was just trying to do something. Now it takes any request. It finds the servlet name. The servlet name is company servlet. It tries finding the component scan controller. You have so many controllers. All controllers are loaded. Login controller. It looks for the name called as login page. You got to make this .html because in my case I have written it as /. Maybe in your case you would have got that .html. So that's left to you. If not, again we'll end up with 404 exception just to make sure. So it goes to login page. If you want, you can do that. Now this we will do it in the next example. Okay. So we return the model and so on. Now just before we could put this in a practice, very important, we try to any application when you try develop, any application, okay, only this index page is shown to the user. Now user has to invariably click on some button to get next page. The reason is I might have to have some security checks. Okay, so what happens? Imagine what we did it in web application earlier. So if I just go back, the structure was like this. We had a context. I call it as app. Okay. There you had a folder called as web INS, right? That had classes, that had list, that had web.xml. So here we had .html, .js. Am I right? Now, if you go to context, the file name is called as index.html, index.php or whatever. It's visible to the end user. Good, no. The JSP is also visible. But do you really want to give JSP to the end user? You have no intention of it because JSP will have some business logic. So I don't want the JSP. That's the first rule of having any proper MVC pattern. Forget about the string, whatever. You go to .NET, PHP, JSP, wherever you want. The first thing is none of your business logic should be given to you. Immaterial, whatever. Now the sites are built so securely these days. People crack their heads years together to know which technology they have used. So invariably what happens, your application will look like this. It has only one file which is called as index.html or default.html, welcome.html. Okay. Now this person who is web owner will have a folder which is called as JSP. Perfect. So what I do is you have index. Every request, you got to follow this little closely. Maybe when I'm trying to write, you can look at the code which you got. Whenever you make a request to anything, all requests will go to web server. The web server, it has to go to deployment descriptor, no other place. In Spring, what happens? The deployment descriptor acts as a controller and tries giving it to the XML. This person will give it to the perfect. Now you're done. Right? Now you got that. Now controller will give it back. When you give it back, I can give model. Here, this model can also be given to another thing. This to and fro absolutely left to you. It's your choice. Instead of sending it to a resolver, you set it up. Yes. Now controller again gives it back. You'll land up with something like a view resolver. I call it as VR, view resolver. Now, view resolver will take the model, which is in our case is JSP, render it, and this is what your Spring architecture is. There's nothing else. So the first example we had hello world. Now you see your controller. It is not extending this HTTP servlet class. Still, you get servlet HTTP servlet because when the request comes, it goes to deployment descriptor. Deployment descriptor has to dispatch the servlet. It's a servlet. What does your servlet take? Request and response. The same request and response is given to your controller. Now, how does it give? Let's not be bothered about it. Because every class which is annotated with a controller, what your Spring does is it injects the request and response object or a model object. Right? It is as simple as. Yeah. Can we try this by executing now? Just check if it works fine. I go back to this place called index.jsp. Here I go, click on play, finish. It asks me to restart. I'm sorry. You can try in your case. I'm just setting my browser to Internet Explorer. That's it. Because this sometimes throws a problem. Oh, it's not open. I click on this. Good. I'll say hello, hello. Invalid login. So let me go back. Lenovo, Apple. Oh, successfully logged. Now, you do any possibility, however you want. You are not allowed to access this page directly. You try taking this. You do whatever you want. It is not accessed. If you want to access this, this has to pass through this link only. You are secure. Your application is secure today. Now, maybe over a period of time, you get into this little advanced level of Spring and all. What happens? Here to here, you have interceptor. Can I also call this a security? Interceptors are a kind of security. I can have Spring security as one of the features. Okay, that is a little longer story. Here I can we can try knowing. Okay, security. Now, what do you do it in security? You write your MD5 algorithms. Now, one of the algorithms what most of the people use in the world is MD5, right? Maybe the Google also, when you do it, enter, it puts some characters right there, right? So they are MD5 algorithms which are written right there. Okay. So I could do it in our one of the website which I am trying to build. So the same thing can try to do. Yes. Maybe if you want, we have a website here which I generally I can pass this. I can log in here. I have just trying to log in. I have I would say something like testing. I just put something. The moment I click on submit, look at this, lot of characters has come. So what, this is my website. So what I have done is, it gives me some message. Now it creates a MD5 algorithm. Now where is my MD5? You go to this page, save as, you'll get MD5. I have taken a chipper text and mapped it. Now I'm trying to do the client level validation. But there are a couple of sites, something like gmail.com. Maybe like Facebook or whatever. I just put something and okay. So you look at this. This message has come. Now this message has come because it has hit the server. And the good thing is they can all be buffered and kept it here, right? So that becomes too much in detail of drilling down, but just to prove that that's possible. And the thing is, whatever framework, I don't know what Google have used it or what other people, but the architecture is the same. This is MVC 3.0, or we call it as 3x architecture. Maybe with some cosmetic changes, you will have it. Very effective way of developing. Okay, so we'll try having another program just to wrap up the thing where I can actually send a model now. I'll give you a model, fill that model, give it to me. That's what I want. Right? We'll try that. Yeah. Company. The XML is it? This is there in the drive. It's just more of a typing thing which we have. So I put it in the drive. It's done. It should not be a problem. Maybe after some time we will work. There, you don't have anything like performance. It is not keep. It has to do it because on the fly it cannot do it. It has to load it first. That's why we say load on startup 1. I think, in fact, I have deleted it. In your case, it is there. It has to. It has to. There is no memory consumption for this. It's not keep memory. It will take for the first time. Yes. It will take. Yes, are we done? Right? So now, let me just close all. I would on SRC Java. Okay.
The broadcast is now
Continue.
starting.
Well,
All attendees are in
so on
listen-only
SRC
mode.
Java, I'm gonna create a package. I call it as com.mypackage.beans. So you can have some sample bean class like employee, transaction, account, a kind of thing. Employee, that's your bean class. We'll have some private int employee ID, private string employee name, private age. Maybe 2-3 attributes is good to go. Okay. So for the same, generate the getters and setters. Source, generate getters and setters, select all, perfect, done. Okay. You done with this? Yes, we are done. Okay. Now the next page which I try opening is index.html. Index.html. We'll try having a HR tag, and I'll say a href something like employer.html. So I want to show that form, but this time this form is loaded with the model attribute which we have created, which has this employee. Okay. So I'm gonna copy this. Done with this. In my controller, create a new class. I call this class as like employee controller. We call this class as employee controller. So the first thing what we do is annotate this class with controller. That's the first thing. I would have public model and view. Let this have a method. I call this method called as employee, and this has request mapping of employee dot HTML, which we have, which we want this to be. But this time, when the value goes, I want the bean to go. Now, by default, what happens in this case? There will be. We know that this is what it looks like. Okay, and the default values would be. It's pure. It's Java which I'm trying to talk. It will be yep name. This is how internally it looks like. This is what your Java does. This is what it happens behind the screen. So when you send a model called as employee, what would go? It invokes a default constructor. The default constructor will set the value of the member variables with these values. Then it is sent. Okay, now if you have a requirement to have a default value of something else, what you got to do is you just have to come here and change whatever you want. Okay, this is the only change which you got to do. That's something like default. Okay, anyways, we have commented it. We're gonna uncomment it in some time. Here in model and view, I would say return new model and view of the view name. I call it as like employee. The model name, you can give any name. I call it as command, and model object is new employee. You can give it as emp command. Or maybe if you are okay, we can give it as emp as well, or anything of your choice. A lot of people try using command or command attributes or command bean and so on. Okay, that's left to you. Is that okay? So the next file which we're gonna create is employee.jsp. Under JSP, the JSP called as employee.jsp. That's where you have it. So couple of things which we're gonna do is the model has come. I have to show it. It's not an expression now. It should be rendered in the form of a form. It's a form which we want to build it here. So I would say here I use some set of tags what Spring has given it to us, which is with something like tag lib, tag library. So you have two things, URI and prefix. Prefix you can use anything. I feel like giving it as form. So it means that it is a form. So you can use any prefix character like F or whatever. And the URI, you can just press control space. It gives you a list of it. You see here, you find something called as form. All the form related. Now these things which you see it here, let me try reading out. This comes from standard lag from Jakarta and all. They're all coming from this servlet-API. You have put this servlet file. That's why it is coming. These things come from Spring. So I select the form. Yes, I have. For this URI, the prefix is form, and I'll be using it. Okay. I would say enter information. Perfect. So I would just put some maybe kind of this time. Just have a look at this for a minute. I will not say this as form. If you put this as form, again you got to do this request or get parameter. which we don't want because we have already got the model. I want to extract that model and give it to the user. I would say form. So this is a prefix. This is actual form from the Spring. I would say here, okay, so I've got this form, good. What does your form has? The form has like action. So I would say action like something like add employee or show employee, whatever, that's your choice. And the method as post. I don't want that to be shown on the address bar. And we have got something. Now what is that called as? EMP. You have got this model. I would say model attribute is EMP. Okay, we have got the model attribute, and the name of the model attribute is called as EMP. Is done with that? Now, I would say maybe if you want to give some label and all, create a table. It looks nice. Let's quickly put some tr. So I need 4 times. So the first time is for the ID, name, age. You can just build that skeleton. We'll use some nice Spring things. The first TD in the first TR will have a form. You look at this, you have everything. So I want a label here. I would say the path is EMP ID and the name you can specify anything, EMP ID. Okay. For this form, input type, we used to use input type is equal to text. You have input type is EMP ID. Now this I take it for granted. I remember that the variable name here and here are same. If you use something like EMP ID, this will not work because the bean getters and setters should map with this is Java reflection. You give a private variable that looks for a getter and setter for that and tries setting the value for that variable. Okay, so I would do this. I'm sorry, this is capital I, which is employee. Should that be okay? So I would just go ahead and try copying it. You also try doing it. It's better to copy paste. Name. Now what was that? Age. Good. So just copy this. Name. Done. My form is filled. You want to give some default values, give it in your bean, that will be reflected here. Now good thing is it goes as a form and it goes as a bundle. So my Spring job is pretty easy. You just have to say, oh, you remember that I gave you a model attribute? Give me that. This model attribute is a filled attribute now. Okay. Right. Perfect. So I would just have one more thing. I would delete this. Input type is submit. So I'm submitting the form. So when I submit, it will look for maybe if you want, you can put it as .html or whatever. Not, you can leave it, and even in your controller, you should not have .html. That's it. It will take as of now. Default values will take, provided we give something here. If not, default values are there. We can even have checking here. We can do something like validation. If the value is like 0, I don't want, I can give a validation right there. Is done with this? We'll move further. Come done? Okay, okay. Maybe you got to be a little cautious when you put these values. Now label anyway is okay, that's your choice. Right? Even this becomes optional for label. But for input type, you can even go with the select type or whatever. Done? Okay. So I'll copy this, the action, in my employee controller. Now I will have a request mapping, and request mapping will have method is equal to request is equal to request. Just give me a second. It's not. Okay. Value is equal to this. Method is equal to request method dot post. Public model and view. I would say it did not give auto suggestion, but I could import it. Just check if it works with control space. But just got to give this request method, and we got various things. I don't know, somehow it did not work this time. Perfect. So now what I have got, when you add a employee, you'll get two parameters. One is employee, and you'll get a model map. Model map is just a map which has key value pair. Okay, I call it as model map. Perfect. I would say something like model map dot add attribute of emp id is employee dot get employee id, because I want to send it to result page now. I'll say, hey, successfully done and all. Maybe what we can do is just to put some comments, I would say you will get the employee object. You can call the DAO. Then you can give it to model map. I'm just using that to send it to the success page or failure page, whatever. I'll say model map. You can go with one or two. Just to finish off, I'm putting all this three. EMP name, EMP name, model map dot attribute ages. Perfect. So finally, return new model and view of string. We can give that string. The string is like, let's say it as result. So some name we can specify, because now I need not return this model map, because when it goes, even the model map is gone. That's where you have it. This is model map. Complete thing is model. Even this is gone. Either you need it or not, this is always sent. If you really don't want this, you will say that, I mean, we are only returning string. Why do I need a model map? You could go ahead if you want. Do this. It works perfectly fine. This, when you give it a string, that will create a model and view internally, right? So when you say returning string, I'm only calling the view. No, that doesn't happen. In reality, that will send the model map. Okay. Yes. Perfect. One model map can have n number of models. It's a map. Just keep creating map. Is that okay? Done with this? Is that we done? Okay. So last page, which is result, I would create it as inside JSP. Inside JSP. The file name is called as result. Perfect. Now we know that the model map which you have got is in the form of the string or primitive types. Okay. I'll take few things for granted. I would say it as something like, in a second, here I would say EMP ID. So this one, EMP name, age. Okay. You can pass all these three objects. Maybe that's left to you how many values you want to send. I've just sent all three. Oh yeah, we got to have one more statement. Percentage at the rate the page is here ignored as false. So I want that not to be ignored. You would say this. Okay. Done with this? That is the actual context.
Should exactly match what we actually put in the actual action.
Yes. That's a map. That's right. We have to match it to not this one. Where is it? here. We got to match for this. We
Doesn't
got,
matter if they doesn't have to be done.
it need not be .html also. I can even write like .do.
Yeah.
So now let me just close and let's run through that once. So first, the page is like index.html, which will be loaded. Okay, so somebody comes and clicks on employee.html. So when you click on employee.html, it will look for web.xml. The web.xml is open. It will take all the requests, gives it to company-servlet.xml. It will look for controller. The controller will be called as, all the controllers are loaded, and it will look for something called as employee.html. It will, I know that it's here. Is employee.html there? Yes. It will try creating a bean. That's what we do it in a business logic. Try create and send it to employee.html. I'm sorry, that send it to employee. That will invoke employee.jsp. JSP now it tries using a Spring forms. That's the tags which you have got. Now you have an action of add employee, and you've got a model attribute called as EMP. Now this model attribute will set all the values, and when this value is set, you will have two things. One is the model map and the actual employee. So in your employee controller, you'll have a method called as add employee.html. It will try taking two parameters. One is the employee object which is got from the form, and the model map. So employee object, I try taking it and I put it in the model map just for a reason that I want to send it to another JSP. You don't want it, you can stop it. So I send it to result. The result is again in .jsp. So whatever value I have set should be shown ideally if all things go according to our plan. Okay, so let's check if it works well. It is not showing this. Oh, I have not put any text. Okay. So let me click. You see this, the default values, what we discussed it has come. So I'll say testing, not the age, it's too much. The values are. So I'll make one more change here in employee. That's where we had commented it. Home, delete. Okay. So I'll say enter name. Okay. So by default, let's consider 18101. So now go back to index, play, restart. This is just not referring to my add employee. I have the value. The default values are all given. Works for. Yeah, clear? No, these annotations are required in one case when we want a validation. or validation, you can go with the XML or property files. There are various ways people do. Okay. Huh. You getting it? Just let me know.